Just as just as a beginning, though, of our meeting, I just want to congratulate people for donating to our Rotary Foundation. But I did discover when I talked to Vicky that we only have 65% of our membership that has contributed. I know there are a few that like to give in May, but we really need 100% of our people. So if you haven't contributed yet to our Rotary Foundation, please do so. Now, with all of that, I'm going to move along and thank Pete Delaney, who seems to be right there, always doing a great job of reporting for our bulletin, and that's really an important thing for all of us to keep connection with our Rotary group. I also want to welcome our guests. Mary, do you have a list that you want to provide us with?
Yes, we have Mauro Immersion from Pathbridge Associates. Welcome. And I see someone named Steph on here as well, and I don't recognize that name. So, Steph, welcome to the meeting as well. And you can put your info in the chat if you would like. So, welcome to our guest today and our guest, Jonathan Barzilay from New York. Thank you.
It's really great to have Jonathan here and give us a whole bunch of insight into the into PBS, which is an incredible resource for our country. Beyond that, we're going to have a short program with our incoming president, Jan Levy, I'm going to turn the meeting over to her at this particular point, and I'll go silent for a while. You won't have to listen to me, but you can hear Jan's plans for the future.
Thank you, John, and hello, everybody, near and far. It is really hard to believe it, but 2 years ago, our board approved a future vision for our club. Little did I know that because I asked a very simple question about how this new vision was going to be implemented, that I would end up co-chairing a team to implement this new future vision. That tells you not to open your mouth when you could be assigned something. In the next few minutes, what I want to do is give you a brief update on our progress toward that implementation and a little sneak peek of the year ahead. One of the main focuses of our future vision is for a financially sustainable and affordable club. Our club leadership realized that we could not continue operating at a deficit, which we had been. To that end, while club meetings are still operating at a loss, the deficits are less than last year. As we strive for a balanced budget for 25-26, the finance team is continuing to evaluate all cost-saving measures, from lower meeting costs and meeting venues to more affordable AV providers. They are looking at every opportunity to achieve savings and eliminate our deficits. Without. Ooh, I just got an echo. I don't know what that's about. To eliminate our deficits without the benefit of investment income to offset meeting and operating losses. That said, we have heard your feedback from emails and conversations and phone calls and our member survey, and we're working to achieve the best combination of value and improved venue experiences while not charging more than $50 for a lunch meeting and locating a consistent and affordable venue for our meetings in the coming year.
I think it looks pretty good for going out right now.
I'm very excited to let you know that thanks to the efforts of two past presidents, Bill Weisfield and Jimmy Collins, as well as some other volunteers, We are really close to finalizing our primary meeting venue for the coming year, and it will meet all of our needs, and it will not be Plymouth Church. Stay tuned. We will be announcing our new venue very soon, like within the next 2 weeks, and you'll be able to put those dates on your calendar. With regard to membership, our future vision depends on developing a larger and more diverse club. To that end, the member recruitment team has updated our organizational membership category, which used to be called corporate memberships, and is developing a target list of prospects they will be approaching with an invitation to join our club. All of us are going to be needed to help with that effort. When it comes to service, our future vision calls for streamlining how community service is planned and executed. Under the leadership of Jevin Powell, our incoming VP of Service, this year's service committee chairs and co-chairs have met several times, and they have proposed a new, more efficient structure. Going forward, there will be one local service committee and one international service committee. The new local service committee is going to focus efforts each year on the top service priorities determined by all of our members. This includes the focus for an increased number of volunteer opportunities, as well as a number of SRF or foundation funded grants, including one high impact, large local grant, which will be funded annually. The current International Service Committee work will remain unchanged for the next year. Both the local and international service committees will be member-led and member-driven, so please consider re-engaging in service with one or both of these committees. The future vision also calls for more member engagement. To advance this component of the future vision, 2 new leadership positions have been formalized. First, you know about one, the new VP of Operations position that you approved through a bylaw change last month, which has been filled by Cynthia Chereau. Cynthia has already begun working with Mary Goldie to determine how to best streamline systems and operate more responsively and efficiently. Second, we've added a new position of Public Image Chair. This position will take responsibility for club communications, such as our newsletters, social media, website content, etc., and will include a move to have one club calendar used for all events. I am really excited and thrilled that Jen Gladish has agreed to take on this new role. Jen will chair a new marketing and communications committee that will include members from the club and foundation boards and from our service committees. As we find new ways to re-energize our public image efforts, we're going to gain more community visibility and more awareness. That's going to be key to driving interest in membership. I hope those of you with an interest in marketing and social media are going to contact Jen. Jen, you could wave. I see you there. She's going to be looking to put this new marketing and communications committee together within the next couple of weeks or months. As I've said, there's a heck of a lot of work that's been going on over the last few months, and the year's not over yet. I want to thank my co-chair, Kathy Gibson. I want to thank all of the volunteers who've been serving on the Future Vision implementation team. They have put in an amazing amount of work, and they deserve all of your thanks. I promised I would also give you just a little sneak peek into the year ahead programmatically. A number of you have suggested that our programs be built around some sort of theme. I have listened and taken your suggestion to heart. I've also tapped into my experience at Leadership Tomorrow to build a year that I am theming Rotarians Build Healthy Communities. We will be using the Seattle Foundation's Elements of a Healthy Community model to build our programs around one of the elements each month. For example, one month we might focus on the economy, another on basic needs, or another on education. Over the next month or two, you'll be hearing more from me on what our year will look like, but I'm excited to move us forward in this direction. Special thanks to David Frum and the entire program committee for working with me to implement this newly themed program year. You know, I never, ever expected that I would be asked to step in and lead this club, not this year or any other year. However, I will say that given all of your support, I'm looking forward to serving all of you, and I hope that we can work together to turn our future vision into a reality. So thank you all for the support you've given me so far and will continue to do. Thanks.
Well, Jan, that's absolutely wonderful. I mean, I can't thank you enough for, first of all, the work you and Kathy have done on our future vision task force and the implementation team. It is revamping our club, making it a club for the future instead of a club from the past. We're taking all of the good things from the past and bringing them to the future and adding a whole new structure. It's really very heartwarming to see what you have done and the entire crew has done, spending all of this energy and time. And I'm just so grateful that it's all coming to flourish at the end of
Appreciate
my
his dad,
year.
and I just sent you, texted you the contact information.
Somebody didn't mute themselves. Anyway, I just want to thank Jan again for making our club a flourishing one for the future. And I know all will be really well done in the year to come. Now it's time for us to move to our main program for the year, and I'm just for the week, and I'm really excited about all of this because, first of all, I get to introduce our very own Rob Dunlop to all of you, and you probably all know about him because he's Rotary Club. And he is the president and the chief operating officer of what we now call Cascade PBS, which includes Channel 9 and much more, and Cascade Public Media and Crosscut, etc. He leads the strategic and operational and business activities of our premier public media entity here in the Pacific Northwest. It serves Western and Central Washington and British Columbia. Since joining Channel 9 and Cascade in 2013, Rob has been focused on redefining the organization's mission, strategy, resources, and community impact in the areas of education, social and civic engagement, and the arts and culture. And he's got a brand new building on First Hill. Wish we could have kept our building at the Seattle Center, which we helped fund as Seattle Rotary. But the new building, I've taken a great tour of it several times. It is absolutely fantastic, right on the corner of Seattle University and on the top of the hill in our both First Hill and Central areas to really connect with community. Prior to joining the organization, which he has really made a big one, served in a variety of roles for more than 22 years with Fisher Communications in Seattle. That, of course, Fisher Communications was Channel 4 before it was sold. Rob was responsible for driving operations and business strategy through a strong
John, you're having some connectivity issues. We've lost your sound.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Well, this happens. It certainly happened when I was in Hawaii. You lost me entirely. Well, anyway, enough said. I want to turn the program over to Rob Dunlop, who is going to introduce Jonathan Barzilay to all of us. Go ahead, Rob.
All right, thanks very much. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Give me a high sign if I do cut out. Thank you very much. It's great to be with all of you, and once again, thanks for the opportunity to be back with you and to have a chance to share the story of Cascade PBS and really PBS nationally. It's an important and pivotal moment for the public broadcasting system, and we're excited to spend a few minutes chatting with all of you about it. I never want an opportunity to pass in which I don't take the opportunity to acknowledge and recognize and thank this club for the decades of support that many of you as individuals have provided to Cascade PBS, but also obviously what this club did for this organization 40 years ago in helping us locate to our prior facility at the corner of 5th and Mercer at Seattle Center. We would have loved to have stayed there for many more years, but unfortunately that was not to be. So we welcome you up to our new facility at 316 Broadway, corner of Broadway and Boren, just a little bit south of Seattle University, close to Swedish and Harborview hospitals. You may hear a helicopter or a siren before the meeting is out. We are that close. And hopefully we will have an opportunity to host one of our Rotary events, evening Rotary events here in our Whitney Community Engagement Center. We've had some conversation about that. Would love to have all of you here with us. Today, it is my great pleasure to introduce all of you to Jonathan Barzilay, who is the Chief Operating Officer of PBS. He's responsible for operations and strategy across the organization. And I have to say, in September, I will be wrapping up 6 years on the board of PBS. And so I've had the opportunity to work closely with Jonathan and the other executives of PBS and to witness their leadership up front. And it is an absolutely stellar team of people that are leading the public broadcasting system for the United States. And so I'm excited to have Jonathan here, and we've got a lot of things to talk about and looking forward to spending some time with him. So Jonathan has many decades of experience really working in senior level roles at other network studios, ABC, CBS, at Qualcomm, and most recently at the Ford Foundation. He joined PBS from the Ford Foundation, where his role was Director, Freedom of Expression. So Jonathan, I definitely want to ask you a little bit about that title. That's one of the most amazing titles I think I've ever heard, and interested to know a little bit more about that. But prior to joining the Ford Foundation, as I mentioned, he had senior level leadership roles with CBS Interactive Entertainment, with ABC, both running their ABC Kids and ABC Toon channels. He worked in with the legal team at ABC, and really just brings a wealth of experience around this very dynamic media landscape that we find ourselves in today. So Jonathan, welcome. It's great to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time. You are currently in New York. PBS is headquartered in Washington, D.C. I know you spend a little bit of time in both places, but we're grateful for you taking a bit of your schedule this afternoon to spend it with Rotary.
Thank you so much, Rob, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be, I think it's morning or afternoon for all of us, just a little later in the afternoon for me. It's great to be with you all. Thank you. And Rob and I look forward to just having a conversation, which will demonstrate the way that national and local support each other here at PBS.
Well, that's a great place to start, because the public broadcasting system is quite different than the commercial broadcasting system, the way commercial media works. And Paula Kerger, the CEO of PBS, often says we use the same tools, but we use them in completely different ways and have completely different objectives with those tools. So can you talk a little bit about the national local relationship and kind of just generally how does public broadcasting work?
Sure. And by the way, we've got time for questions here. And if someone has a question in the interim, just signal however your practice is on these calls to signal. That's with a mechanical hand or a real hand or anything that you'd like to do. as Rob mentioned, I spent 15 years at ABC, and I spent a number of years at CBS, although that was on the interactive side, managing CBS.com. And both of those networks are similarly national and local, and yet they're really entirely different. It's true that if you were to watch television in your local market, you would see a mix of programs that were brought to you nationally, most typically the prime time schedule, the hours in the evening. And then you'd have a mix of syndicated and local program, most notably local news. That's the dominant strand in most markets. And PBS, we also have a mix of programs that, Cascade and Rob produce themselves or source from other syndicators. But the difference really, if you're inside these companies, as well as obviously the national programs that run in the evening and throughout the broadcast as well, when you're inside an ABC or a CBS, the affiliate stations, as they're called, are basically owned by different groups. You might have Hearst Broadcasting or Lynn Broadcasting or Granite Broadcasting, Sinclair Broadcasting, McGraw-Hill. If you want to sort of pull together a meeting to decide, let's say you'd like to shift the program ABC News Nightline from 11:30 p.m. an hour later so that you can launch, say, the Jimmy Kimmel Show, you can basically call up a meeting and have 10 or 12 station leads in the room and try and negotiate what that looks like and what it would take to create that space on the schedule. Every PBS station is entirely separately owned. Some of them, as Rob noted, are community licensees managed by a 501c3. I believe that's the case with Cascade. Others are licensed to universities. For instance, KPBS in San Diego, the license is held by San Diego State. Others are actually licensed to the state themselves. Georgia Public Broadcasting, the state of Georgia, holds that license. So you have an unbelievable range of businesses that comprise the PBS family. So that's very different just in terms of organizational work. The fundamental difference, I would say, between PBS and commercial media is that we are not choosing programs based on their commercial appeal. When you're inside ABC and you're determining what's going to go on to the fall schedule and you're reviewing comedies and dramas and you're trying to figure out how many hours will be allocated to news programming, what sort of an audience you can deliver to different advertising demographics is right at the top of the list of considerations. That's not really what we're looking for at PBS. We are looking for stories that have an educative aspect to them. We're looking for stories that are not going to be told elsewhere. We're looking for stories that really allow filmmakers and journalists to do work to their utmost capacity. And really, we hope elevate, educate, inspire, entertain the audience. It's a different calculus in terms of what feels like a PBS program versus what feels like a program for a broadcast or a cable network, which is not to diminish those networks, because I've been associated with fantastic programming on those networks, and Rob comes out of Fisher, which also does unbelievably great work. But it is a different exercise, I would say, Rob.
Yeah, I think what's interesting too is that much of the program schedule on PBS actually does emanate from local stations. Within the system, there are a handful of what we would refer to as national producing stations. So when you see a series like Nova or Nature or Antiques Roadshow or Frontline or Masterpiece or these things, they emanate up into the system from local stations. And so every local station has the opportunity to produce content that actually finds its way into the primetime schedule. Now, certainly the shows I just mentioned are certainly tentpole programs and have been a part of the PBS schedule for many, many decades. Others have more limited runs, but that's a really unique aspect of the system that really doesn't happen on the commercial side of the business.
Yeah, I would say, just again, trying to analogize it to my years inside ABC and CBS, those stations that identify and build their businesses around being suppliers of national programs, they perform the function for PBS that a studio like Warner Brothers or Sony might perform for a commercial network, which is to say, within PBS stations pay us dues, and that, as well as money we raise philanthropically, creates the PBS budget. The majority of that budget is allocated out for content such as the titles that Rob mentioned. But editorial responsibility for them is not within PBS. It is within these newsrooms or shops that are located inside stations. Now, it's true there's some things that simply come direct to PBS, like Ken Burns is not actually housed inside a PBS station. But it's true. Frontline, Nova, Nature, great performances. These things are inside stations using a mix of dollars they raise and a mix of dollars that PBS gives them on behalf of the collective, as we scale up the resources.
So let's talk a little bit about programming. Everyone's got their favorite shows, and people are always fascinated to know not only what is today, but what might be coming down the road. I've got a couple of questions kind of along those lines. I mean, one is related to journalism specifically, given there's so much pressure on the institution of journalism today. And we see such an evolution within the journalistic landscape, if you will, from what used to be, say, a decade or two ago. And some of those pressures are coming from sort of technology and how it's impacting the business model. Some of those things are coming from social media and the proliferation of just different platforms and contributors under the banner of journalism, but may not actually sort of, accrue to what we would traditionally believe to be well-resourced journalism. And so I'm curious how PBS is navigating that system or navigating those dynamics, I should say. The McNeil, Lehrer NewsHour, certainly was just such a staple of that environment for such a long time. And PBS NewsHour today, continues to be a program of record as it pertains to core journalism work. Things like Washington Week and Firing Line and Frontline are all programs that kind of fit within that same genre. Talk about the pressures of how PBS kind of manages those things, particularly given just the political dynamics of what's taking place in the environment today.
Yeah, there's an awful lot in your question, Bob. And
Feel free to just take a piece of that, maybe.
I'll try and unpack it in a few different ways. The first is I do believe there is a crisis in local journalism across the nation broadly. I believe since the Association of Reporters and Editors has been keeping this score, the fewest number of people are working in newsrooms since that tally has been kept. As you note, a lot has to do with the internet and Craigslist and other services basically eating the classified ad business that used to keep a lot of local newspapers afloat in revenue. Some of it just has to do with change in consumer behavior and younger audiences going in different places, getting news, air quotes, from social media. Some of it just has to do with the fragmenting of the landscape that went, from 3 primary networks plus PBS in, say, the 70s to many cable options in the 80s and 90s to an almost infinite number of internet options now today in the 2000s and the 2020s. So some of this is just the secular fragmentation and drift. There's also a lot of pressure on journalists because of the overall political culture, which feels tribal and feels separated. And there are certainly examples of cable news channels that I think are deliberately catering either to a particularly progressive or a particularly conservative audience in an intentional way and super serving those audiences. It's more of a struggle, I would say, in general, for broadcasters who are trying to walk a middle line, because everybody is very, very energized and activated and easy to find fault. Just broadly on the landscape before I turn to PBS, you mentioned with a smile my title of Director of Freedom of Expression uh, in a prior job. I just want to note that if you have worked at the Walt Disney Company, where there are titles like Vice President of Winnie the Pooh, the freedom of expression title doesn't even rate. But that job, at least as I approached it, I tried during my years there to seed SEED, to prompt the new model of not-for-profit news organizations, places like ProPublica, places like the Texas Tribune, places like Minnesota Post or New Orleans Lens, No Lens, which are local newsrooms, not-for-profit, that attempt to fill that space. And I do think that's important work. It's also work that I think PBS stations do on a local level as well. Within PBS, our primary flagship news offerings are Frontline, which originates from WGBH in Boston and is a weekly investigative news magazine. It is stewarded by the very capable Rainey Aronson, who has been there, 8 or 9 years now as the executive producer and was there as a producer previously. David Fanning was the founding executive producer of that station. What I want to mention about Rainey's process that is just remarkable is her commitment to transparency. So, for instance, when Frontline does a film on a topic, and it gets edited down to a 60-minute film that runs on Tuesday evenings on PBS, Rainey will post the full interview transcript, the full Q&A for every single interview that's done that goes in there, just inviting people to come in and educate themselves, orient themselves around the context, to make sure that things were not pulled out of context in any way. The PBS NewsHour, which comes out of WETA in Arlington, Virginia, is the successor, as Rob notes, to the Robert McNeil Report, the McNeil-Lehrer Report, the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour, and now the PBS NewsHour. There have only been 6 people who have hosted that show in over 50 years: Robert McNeil, Jim Lehrer, Gwen Eiffel, who passed away too soon, Judy Woodruff, and today Jeff Bennett and Amna Nawaz. It is the only one of the nightly newscasts on broadcast that is 60 minutes long rather than 30. And I would just offer, everyone can have their own perception of editorial judgment. Everyone can have their own belief on whether or not things are being accurately reported. I would say that the PBS NewsHour, which strives scrupulously to be even-handed, managed by Sarah Just, the extremely capable executive producer there. It is the only one of these shows that is not actively trying to raise your blood pressure while you're watching it. I would say almost everyone else is just to keep you tuned in and leaned in and keep you there through the commercials as some incentive to try and get you excited in one way or another. And I would say the NewsHour distinguishes itself by the amount of foreign reporting it does, the depth of time length of time that it devotes to stories, and the overall effort to be measured. And I think it's a hard thing to do that, and I think they do it admirably in my view.
Yeah, we like to say that we bring light, not heat, which I think is a unique spot to occupy in today's environment, particularly around journalism. We need to pivot to questions here in just a moment. Can you give me 60 seconds on kind of the funding environment for public broadcasting? It's under some real threat right now. Specifically, this isn't a fundraising call, certainly, but I do think that we're at an inflection point with funding for public broadcasting that is noteworthy.
Yeah. So I sit on the board of something called the Public Media Alliance, which is public broadcasters from all over the world And the thing that is different about PBS is that we are not actually state media, 100% funded by the state, either via a tax or some other method. We have been from the outset a public-private partnership. There is a federal appropriation. It's around $500 million that supports both PBS and NPR. The Congress allocates that to an organization called the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which is neither PBS nor NPR. It's an independent nonprofit that's owned by the American people, chartered by Congress. And CPB takes this money and distributes it according to statute in very precise ways. And basically, nearly, I think it's 70% of the money is given directly to individual stations. That could be Cascade. In a city like Seattle or Chicago or New York, the percentage of funds that come from that federal grant called a community service grant is going to be relatively low. And most of the budget from Rob's station and other stations and cities comes from money that they raise from the community. But in a rural station, in Fargo, in Anchorage, in Cookeville, Tennessee, a high percentage of the budget comes from the CPB Community Service Grant. So if you look at the aggregate, the basic math is that for every dollar of the federal appropriation, PBS member stations raise $6 or $7 additional dollars in different ways. That's the public-private partnership. What is at risk right now is that the current administration has announced its intention to send a package to Congress seeking to rescind the appropriation for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And that is the fight that is before us here. Public media stations are mobilizing their supporters through protectmypublicmedia.com and other sources to try and demonstrate their support for it. Our key argument, or one of our key arguments here, is that doing away with this money is going to have a very uneven effect on the system, and some of the most vulnerable stations will really struggle to stay alive. Everyone will be diminished if there's less resources in the system. We would have to send out a lighter program offering to our stations because we would lose some of the money. But the real thing that you want to be careful about is that you don't want these smaller market stations to go dark and further create a divide. And that's particularly true for something we haven't talked about extensively here, which is PBS Kids and the educational programming that is on every PBS station in the morning, which is uniquely devised around curriculum led by Sarah DeWitt, our very capable general manager there, which again, I think is something that so many parents rely upon in a country in which not everyone has access to preschool.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate it. I think we've eaten in quite significantly to our Q&A time. So there's so many things that yeah, we could spend our time talking about, but I'll defer to our Rotary leaders to help us figure out how we triage questions that may be coming from the group.
Thank you for the time. Appreciate it greatly, Rob and Jonathan. It gives us good insight. So I actually wanted to ask this first question. Many years ago, Mr. Rogers went to Congress and gave a powerful speech advocating for PBS. Who is the modern day Mr. Rogers can perform that?
Well, I think our CEO, Paula Kerger, did an absolutely outstanding job when she was testifying before the DOJ subcommittee on the 26th of March. I couldn't be prouder of Paula. I was with her as she prepared for that. I was with her as she testified. I thought she did a tremendous job. The answer to who is today's Mr. Rogers is probably Daniel Tiger, which is actually a Mr. Rogers descendant. It's a puppet from his original show that is now the star of a computer animated show on PBS Kids. It is the most popular show on PBS Kids. So Fred Rogers continues to make his presence felt.
Thank you. We kind of mentioned earlier with the budget deficit. We're going to go with Paul's question. And need to be focused on programming. Do you still need to focus on programming that draws a large audience so that a large group of potential donors? Didn't Downton Abbey provide a huge boost for PBS? Wouldn't you love to have another show like that popular?
Well, sure we would. But you know, whether you're at ABC or PBS, hits are kind of lightning strikes. You don't really know exactly what's going to be a hit. We have a lot of beautiful costume dramas on PBS. I would argue that some of them are as good as Downton Abbey. Downton Abbey, for some reason, just hit the zeitgeist. It really became an amazing thing. We don't own that show, by the way. We never did. So while it gave us access to big audiences to become members, the true financial benefit did not accrue to PBS. Mind you, I'm not unhappy with it. I'm thrilled. But just to be clear, we don't really have the money to own our own programs. We license them, which is the case with many broadcasters as well. And yeah, we try to pull together a schedule that balances the more popular offerings, such as Masterpiece or Antiques Roadshow, with things that are we feel really important to the national fabric, like great performances or Nova, the science anthology, and hopefully, you know, we can serve as many as we can in all those different ways.
Thank you. We'll come back to something real quick, but do either of you teach courses or guest lecture at universities to your peers in the profession? Which topics? What do you recommend required for reading?
Jonathan?
I do not do it regularly. I do it when I'm asked to do one-offs, which I do, you know, a couple of times a year, often for people that I know who are now teaching. You know, in terms of things to read, the media landscape is changing so fast. It's hard to recommend something. My sort of favorite book in general, or a favorite book in general around media evolution, is a book called The Master Switch by Tim Wu, W-U, Tim Wu. He's a professor at Columbia Law School. And it doesn't come up to the present, which I think is one of its strengths, but it makes you think about the past and how perhaps the present is a rerun of the past.
Yeah, I've done some teaching primarily around the intersection of media and business, where those two things come together and what that sort of intersection looks like.
Here's another question in regards towards this is going to put you both on the spot, and in a good way, hopefully. This is from our General Collins, so this is straight from the top. Could you give us a soundbite to share with others about the value proposition of PBS journalism?
Yeah, PBS is the last locally owned and governed media in most American communities. It is committed to the truth without any commercial imperative, and it aims to inspire and enlighten all Americans, and to use media to its absolute best potential.
Yeah, I'll lean on the mission that we state with respect to Cascade PBS, which is to inform and inspire our community to make the world a better place. We exist so that we can not only demonstrate, but actually impact our communities in a positive way, and to show that media can be a force for good in how we come together as communities and how we learn and grow together.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And one last question here in regards, what can we do to support PBS during this potential budget crisis?
Well, I think Jonathan mentioned earlier, Protect My Public Media, which is an opportunity where one can essentially lend their name to the cause of helping to express their support for funding for public broadcasting, and in turn receive information and resources and contacts and so forth, such that being connected to our elected officials and helping us make the case for what we do and how it impacts our communities is really the most valuable thing that can be done. So if you're not a member of Protect My Public Media, it's free. You just go sign up and you'll start getting some information about how you can help protect public media in the United States. That's really kind of the most important thing anybody could do right now, is to just lend your name to the cause and get information and be willing to reach out to your elected officials and let them know that public broadcasting matters.
And that happens to be in the chat right now. You can click on it as we are watching the program.
Yeah, I will mention two quick things before we wrap, and I know we're tight on time. One is I want to just highlight that Ken Burns has a terrific documentary coming out in November, The American Revolution. It looks amazing. I've seen a few clips. Jonathan's probably seen quite a bit more of it than I have, but it's a expansive documentary as only Ken Burns can do. So I would highly encourage you to be on the lookout for that. Ken will actually be in Seattle July 14th, and we're hosting an event with him. So we'll try to make sure all of you get information related to that. The other thing is a very interesting series called Deadlock, and we probably don't have time to get into it, but it's a reboot of a series that did air on PBS a number of years ago, in which we bring together political figures, media figures, leaders from across a number of different disciplines to really wrestle with some very challenging hypothetical dynamics that we're facing in society today, and to really help sort of think through the ways in which those things may in fact play out. Jonathan's been very intimately attached to the production of that program, and I think we've got, when is the next episode coming out?
It's going to be the third week of May.
Okay.
Yeah, the third week of May. And
yeah,
there's a question in the chat about a PBS program that meant something to you at an earlier age, and I was going to offer that up. I mean, this Fred-friendly concept, which originally I think aired under the title Ethics in America, with various law professors as the kind of central figure, has been rebooted. It's now going to be called Breaking the Deadlock. And Professor Aaron Tang of UC Davis does an amazing job. If you go onto the PBS website, the Cascade website, you can look up Deadlock and you can find the first episode, which was recorded before the election. And the latest one will be out something like the 20th of May, something like that.
Well, thank you both so much for presenting, and in honor of your both presenting today, we are donating to Harvest Against Hunger 600 healthy meals. We certainly appreciate that. But before you go, there is a question in the chat that I think is important for us to just know about. If you're really interested in giving to PBS in general, do you give to the local station or do you give to NPR directly? And maybe there's a conflict in that, but that's a question that was posed, and I thought maybe before we go and move on, you might answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the primary path for most support is to a member station. There may be reasons to donate specifically to PBS if their donor has a particular focus on a certain type of national program or a certain initiative that is PBS. And often, I mean, PBS and the local station will work together to determine how best to allocate a gift like that. But 9 times out of 10, I would say the typical move that we encourage would be to support your local station. Again, there may be other circumstances. There may be people who have moved around so much they wouldn't know which station to affiliate with, and then they might get steered towards a station that is actually supporting the particular initiative, educational or programming, or to the PBS Foundation. But we can sort all of that out. But those are rarer cases, I would say, Rob.
Yeah, that's very true. Generally, you support your local station in turn supports PBS, and that's really true on the public radio side as well. Support your local public radio station, and in turn, those resources generally flow to NPR. So yes, that's kind of the way the system's designed.
That's great. Well, thank you both again. I also want to thank REB Enterprises and Carl Benke and Bloodworks for Northwest for their continued sponsorship, and encourage anyone else and their companies to sponsor us also. It certainly helps with our financial continuation that we have been working on. I also want to now turn this over to Mary Goldie, who is going to talk a little bit about our upcoming service project announcements.
Hey everyone. So we kind of decided to piece this out, the service projects that are coming up versus the other announcements, so you can have a full idea of just how full our calendar is the rest of this Rotary year. And it's really important for us to have club member support and attendance at these events. So please keep these service events front of mind as you're moving forward this spring. So our first one is Saturday, May 3rd. It's the Rotary Restores the Duwamish River. That's from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Diagonal Avenue Park and Shoreline Habitat. It's going to be a morning of education and action. You're going to learn about the EPA's efforts to clean up the Duwamish, and then you'll join your work clubs to help plant native trees and pull invasive plants. I know that we've only had like maybe 1 or 2 members go to this in the past few years, so it would be nice to have a better turnout moving forward for that. Your contact for that is going to be Kathy Gibson, so reach out to her if you have more questions.
And don't forget, they feed you too if you go.
They do. Please stay for lunch at noon, it says on here. So make sure you do that. Wear your work gloves, your boots, so on and so forth. Another event where you probably should be wearing your work gloves and boots would be the Wellspring Family Services Paint Party, which is going to be Saturday, May 10th from 9 a.m. to noon. You're going to join Wellspring for a meaningful and fun morning where they're going to be repainting the lobby. I think they said they had a maximum of like 10 to 12 people that they can have in the space. So if you want to volunteer for this, the deadline is May 5th. And you're going to need to email volunteer@wellspringfs.org. All of this information is on the club website. And my final announcement before I turn it over to Jaime is service adjacent, I must say. Tuesday, May 20th, we're going to have a business mentor showcase from 4 to 6 p.m. This is going to be at UW's Founders Hall Peak Forum. You'll need to RSVP for this one by May 12th. And this event is going to showcase the Rotary Business Mentors Committee and celebrate the completion of the Business Management Consulting Program. We had a lovely lunch meeting there last year. So this is kind of a continuation of that, but more of an evening reception type setup. We'll also recognize the vital contributions of the Rotary Business Mentors Committee in supporting the students and the small businesses. You're going to have to RSVP for this one by May 12th. And now over to you, Jaime.
Thank you for that, Mary. And now we're on May 7th, we have a lunch meeting at Plymouth Church. It'll be Peace Trees, Vietnam. We kind of heard a little bit earlier. We're headquartered in Seattle, Washington, and Quang Tri province in Vietnam is dedicated to addressing the legacy of the U.S.-Vietnam War through mine action, community assistance, and citizen diplomacy. It's a partnership with Vietnam leadership and local communities. Peace Trees safely clears land of explosive remnants and war supports community-led education and economic development initiatives so that future generations can thrive. Be a good lunch. Please show up. Then on May 14th, we have an evening event where we're calling it Walk the Waterfront 2.0 with Bob Dongan. Hope I got your name correct. Look forward to the sequel of last year's waterfront tour, guided by our very own Bob. Last year we walked south. This year we'll be walking Ivers Acres Claim, Pier 54. It'll be followed by food, drinks, and hopefully a really great sunset, which would be ideal. And the weather we've been getting lately, I can see that totally happening. The walk starts at 4:30 p.m., appetizers and drinks at 6 p.m., and the location will be Ivers Clam. Come for the walk and drinks, and hopefully see you there. The following meeting will be at May 21st. We'll be at the Swedish Club. More to talk about that. It's our Diplomacy Day. It's our annual meeting. Every year we get to see the leaders of different countries come together to figure out, we hope to get to figure this world out to be a better place. And this will be at the Swedish Club. And then the following 2 weeks from there will be June 4th. We'll have a lunch meeting at the WAC, where we'll have the Washington State Attorney, Washington State Attorney General Nick Brown, providing us some insights on what's going on. If you can notice, we're trying 3 different locations, from the Swedish to the WAC, and also the next one, which is popping up right now, at the Motif, which will be Wednesday, June 18th. It's a lunch meeting. It'll be our last meeting of the year, so we'll hopefully get the biggest showing. And we got to bring in the big guns. We're going to bring in President John Bridges' brother, Rabbi Dan Bridge, which will provide us some good spiritual insight, as well as anything that can be beneficial to our recap of our year and all the great leadership that President John has provided us. Thank you for all, and we're moving it back to you, President John.
Well, thank you.
Oh, wait, to my back. There's a couple more things. Apologies. Let's one slide back. We have June 18th, Pinkerman and Skill Donors Reception from 6:30 to 9:30. I was very fortunate to attend it last year, very kindly, because of the kindness of our club. It's really great to be around people who really donated and really show all the greatness that our club can be. This will be held at the Seattle Tennis Club. I advocate for you to, hopefully, if you're one of those donors there, please go and attend. It's nice to just socialize and just realize that, our club is amongst great people who do wonderful things. And then our June 25th, our President's Party. Can't forget about that. We got to wind down a little bit, enjoy each other's company. We'll be at the Swedish Club from 5 to 8 p.m. on June 25th, and look forward to some more festivities there. Now I'm done. Back to President John. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Jaime. Lots of things on the calendar for us to pick and choose and be part of, and I hope that that we get more people coming to the Pinkerman and Skills. Well, that's sort of like the push to give a little bit more extra dollars to our Rotary Foundation. So the more you give, the more we celebrate. So please think about that. And don't forget Rotary International itself. By giving to Rotary International, we get to have matching funds for so many of our projects. And unless we get a larger percentage of our membership donating, and that isn't, they don't have to donate a lot of money. It's just the idea that you would donate to them. That will be very helpful for our projects that we sponsor. Well, we're coming to a close of the meeting, and as I do at each meeting, I like to talk about some things that happened on April 23rd. We're going to go back to 1516, where Duke Wilhelm IV of Bavaria endorsed the German beer purity law, which added to the standards for the sale of beer in Bavaria, ensuring that beer is only brewed from 3 ingredients: water, barley, and hops. In 1635, the first public school in the United States, the Boston Latin School, which still exists, was founded. In 1789, President-elect George Washington moved into Franklin House, New York, the first official residence of a U.S. president. In 1861, Robert E. Lee dropped off of the U.S. Army and was named the commander of the Virginia Confederate Forces. 1984, AIDS virus was identified as the acquired immune deficiency syndrome. And in 1988, federal smoking ban during domestic flights of 2 hours or less was enforced. And my dog is barking at that. He likes that. Birthdays. 1564, William Shakespeare was born. In 1791, James Buchanan was born. And in 1928, Shirley Temple was born. This is Navy Day in China. It's World Book Day, and it's UN English Language Day and UN Spanish Language Day for the United Nations. And with all of that, I am going to hammer us adjourned.